Congratulations! You've been asked to contribute to the professional development of your fellow lawyers. You've been chosen because of particular expertise that you have in law. This is an opportunity for you to make a real difference to the standard of practice in this jurisdiction. Although it's positive recognition of your ability, most people find it stressful to be asked to present to their peers. We've put together this series to help you not only feel more comfortable and confident in delivering your presentation, but also to help you deliver a better and higher quality of legal education. Now, this is not the same as teaching law school. There are some significant differences. Your purpose is to raise the standard of practice for the lawyers that you'll be presenting to. That means that you need to use effective adult education principles and practices. What are they? Well, here are some of them. Good adult learning addresses real needs that people have. In this case, the lawyers that you're going to be presenting to. Good education keeps people involved and active and matches how they like to learn. It's delivered in an environment where people are physically comfortable and psychologically comfortable. The atmosphere needs to be free of risk. And importantly, the content of your presentation needs to be both logical and creative. The logical part enables people to understand what it is that you're presenting, and the creative part helps people to remember what you've said. This series has two component parts. One is the guide and the other is the video. You're watching the video, and what you'll find in the following segments is that there is information presented, some demonstrations and examples given. The companion guide provides similar information for those of you who are delivering longer sessions of a half day or perhaps even longer. Well, enough talk. It's time to get started. I can almost hear your audience clapping now. Making decisions about what you're going to present is the most critical part of preparing and delivering your presentation. If you're like most people, you want to just dive in and research content and find case examples to support your ideas about your topic. This can be a time-consuming and time-wasting process. It often results in extra writing and rethinking as you go through your development of your presentation. The process that we're going to be talking about will help you to focus your thinking before you start writing and will ensure that you meet the specific needs of those that will be coming to your presentation. We recommend that you use the presentation planning form that you find in the companion guide to help you make these decisions. The first part is a topic analysis. This helps you to examine the legal concepts and issues relating to your topic. Questions 1 to 5 help you to think about the reasons and issues that create a need for the presentation, the drivers. What are the issues that have given rise to dealing with this topic? Is there a specific event or series of events that precipitated the concern about this topic? Are there changes, new legislation, regulations, or case law? What are the new issues related to these changes that need to be addressed? How do these issues affect practice? Number 5 is probably the most important question. It helps you to remember and focus on the fact that the reason why lawyers are coming to your session is to be able to provide better service to their clients. Questions 6 to 8 refer to what content is needed to address the issues that you've identified. What possible content could be focused on given these issues? What are the areas of content that may need to be addressed through continuing education? Are the issues being addressed in other ways as well? If this is part of a larger series of presentations, how does my presentation fit with what else is being presented? These questions generate possibilities and help you to avoid single-track thinking. Now, since an educational program is designed to fill a gap or a need that a specific group or group of individuals have, it's important to think about the specific needs of your audience. Questions numbers 9 to 17 require you to understand more about the perspective of your audience about your topic, their concerns, and the specific nature of their learning needs. How do other lawyers see this issue? What do they think they need to learn? How open are they to learning and changing in this area of practice? What is the likely range of perspectives about this issue? What does your audience assume to be true about this issue, and are these assumptions accurate? What are the hot concerns, and why? What is the nature of the skill or knowledge gap for this audience in relation to this aspect of the law or legal practice? What is the cause of the gap? What is the impact of the gap in knowledge or skills on individual practitioners and their clients? What are the likely similarities and differences between me and my audience in relation to my view of the topic, my knowledge, skill, and experience? Will this topic likely appeal to general practitioners or lawyers who specialize in this practice area? Questions number 18 to 21 provide you with information about the context within which your presentation is occurring. What will the audience be doing before and after my presentation? How much time do I have? How large is my audience likely to be? What is the facility like? What limitations does it have in relation to my being seen and heard by my audience? What audio and visual equipment is available for me to use? Now you've thought through the specifics of your topic and considered the specific needs of your audience, it's important to pull that thinking together and write a specific purpose statement. The first decision here is to decide whether you are going to just inform your audience by giving them information about what to do and how to do it, or persuading them, in other words, getting them to change what they do or how they think about a particular issue. When you've made that decision, then it's important to write a single statement that pulls together the audience's needs, uses a verb that says what you want the audience to do, and number 3, focuses on your topic. This specific purpose statement will help you focus your research and also suggest the specifics of content to make that research even easier. With your specific purpose statement written, the hard part is actually done. That thinking is never easy. And it's on to the fun part of research and putting it in writing. We just talked about how important it is to focus your presentation on the wants and needs of your audience. Now we're going to flesh that out in terms of building the content and the structure to your actual presentation. We're going to talk about the presentation and the paper. We're using a process that will multitask for you. The same research, the same organization that you're going to use in your presentation will also be reflected in your paper. We want people to be able to follow along and not get lost in your paper if that's the kind of learning that they want to do. This process has 5 steps. The first of which is identify the main points. Using your specific purpose, identify those pieces of content that logically make sense in terms of achieving your purpose. The next step is to organize those main points. Now, if it's a presentation to inform, there are some standard ways of doing that. You can do it by time, different legislation at different decades, for example, geography, differences in the law from one jurisdiction to another, probably more effectively simple to complex, establishing the sort of basic principles first, and then moving on to some complex application of those legal principles. Or sequential, this is the first step, this is the second step, this is the third step. Once you've got your main points organized, now's the time to conduct that research that you've wanted to do. Remember that you're doing the same research for the paper as you are doing for the presentation. So keep good notes. Use your time well, focusing just on the kind of information that you need to support those main points. Make sure that you have information and facts, but also that you support it with interesting case law examples. We want people to both understand and remember, and those stories will help people to remember what it is that you're saying. The next part, and you're probably wondering when this was going to occur, is your introduction. Now that you have the body of the presentation, you now know what it is that you're introducing, and so it makes sense to write that now. The first challenge that you have in terms of delivering that presentation is to have people sit up and listen. You have about 11 seconds to do that, which isn't very long. So using a startling statement, a rhetorical question, a particularly important example or recent case law or incident in the world is a way to grab people's attention right away. The rest of the introduction depends upon what it is that people need to know to be able to listen and remember. A couple of things are absolutely necessary. Tell them what the purpose of your presentation is and how it's organized. That builds a structure for people to be able to hang the facts on that you give them and helps them again to both understand and remember. Provide them with any background information that might be helpful for them to be able to remember what it is that you're saying. This can include things about you, your experience. That increases your credibility. But it also can be background or specific terms or words that you are going to be using that they need to understand your message. The last step in this design process is to develop the conclusion. Depending upon the kind of presentation that you're giving, you may want to summarize or restate the things that you've said. You may want to call them to action to do something differently than they've done before. You may want to challenge them to make a change in how they're delivering service in a particular area of practice. I know that if you use this process for writing your presentation in paper, your presentation will be both more understandable and clear and more memorable. Having a well thought out and well planned presentation is the first step to a dynamic delivery. The next step, however, is that time between preparation and delivery when you're practicing. I'm going to talk about 6 different things that you can do that can make a real difference to the quality of your delivery. The first of which is managing your fear. Likely you're feeling just a bit stressed about providing continuing legal education to your peers. The most important thing here is to monitor your self-talk. What are you saying to yourself? Are you talking to yourself about being successful? Are you visualizing yourself being successful? If you are, that's great. It creates a memory, and it's like you've done it before and your body knows how to do it again. If you're negative in your visualization or your self-talk, it will affect the ability to actually deliver well. The second thing is to be able to speak extemporaneously. It's important to have that dialogue and communication with your audience. If your presentation is totally memorized, there's something about that spark of spontaneity that just isn't there. To speak extemporaneously, how you prepare is simply prepare an outline of the things that you're going to be speaking. You can use visual aids as well to help you along during your presentation. Don't put too many notes together or you'll get lost in them as you're delivering your presentation. When you're practicing an extemporaneous presentation, practice the connectors, the kinds of things that you're going to say between the ideas. The third part is to let the enthusiasm of your presentation take over and really add that spark of spontaneity to the delivery. Now, there's some things also in terms of your body and what's happening in your presentation that are important to think about. First of all, you need a nice straight posture. Nice and easy, relaxed, but still energized. You can achieve that by making sure that you have the weight on the balls of your feet so that you're kind of ready to run. If you can move a little bit, that also increases the energy in your delivery. If, however, you do find yourself, as in a panel discussion, sitting down, it's particularly important that you focus on compensating for that, because what happens when your body relaxes, your voice relaxes, and that destroys that nice energy and enthusiasm that you might naturally have for your topic, and that's what engages your audience as well. When it comes to gestures, and they're important to reinforce the messages that you have, the particular ideas, if you've done one gesture once, don't do it again. All that does is create a distraction to your audience rather than a reinforcement. The last piece in terms of your body, and remember we're establishing that communication with your audience, is eye contact. Make sure that you include the whole audience in your visual plane. Focusing on particular individuals is important as well. Establishing that eye contact with the audience increases the feeling of dialogue that you can have as well. The next thing sounds easy, but it's so important. Just open your mouth. That will increase your ability to have a louder volume and also make your words much more clear. The best microphone in the world cannot compensate for mumbling. It's important to be clear and concise about the words that you use. Which brings me to the next point, which is watch your words. The use of gender-neutral language is particularly important in a presentation. Avoiding any words that may show disrespect, personal bias, or prejudice are very important to avoid. Just one comment like that can ruin an entirely effective and important presentation. It's just easier to avoid them. The last point is easy, easy, easy to talk about and hard to do, and that is simply practice, practice, practice. Good luck. It's going to be so fun. Are you visualizing it? Even though you and your skills at communicating are the most important part of your delivery, your audience actually needs more to be able to understand what it is that you're saying. Visual aids can play that role for you. They can strengthen the organization of your material, making it more clear to your audience. They can also increase the understanding that the audience has of what you're saying, and they also create variety so that your presentation is more memorable. Visual aids play three key roles. They can clarify. In other words, they can make more clear some facts, some information that is perhaps more complex and difficult to understand by words alone. They can illuminate or provide more information about a particular subject. The third thing that they can do is summarize. Let's look at some examples of these three types. The first is illuminate. This is a picture of a construction site, and in fact, most slides that illuminate are pictures. This one is a slide that clarifies. It shows relationships and provides much more information than you could possibly give by words alone. This slide is a slide that summarizes some key and important information. Most of the slides that we've used in this presentation are summarizing slides, and this is an important one to go through. It establishes what makes a good visual aid. The first one is that it's visible. People can see it. It's accurate. No spelling mistakes or grammar errors. It's clear. It's appropriate. In other words, it fits well into your presentation and it has a particular purpose. It is purposeful. Let's take a look at some slides that measure up and don't measure up to these criteria. This is the first. Very poor slide. Much too much information for people to read and understand, especially while you're speaking. Also, the font is way too small. The rule of thumb is 36 point for headings and no smaller than 18 for text. The larger your audience is, the larger the font needs to be. This is an example of good font. You see how much easier that's going to be to read and understand. This is a font of demonstrating poor color. Very poor contrast, not a bright, clear color. Here, on the other hand, is an example of a good slide, bright, clear color, and high contrast. There are four basic principles that you need to focus on in terms of using visual aids effectively. The first is focus. Slides can be distracting. You want the audience to be clear about where to focus, on you or on the slide or visual. You can do that by where you place your body and also what you're doing in terms of eye contact with the audience. If you want the focus to be on the slide, then you look at the slide. If you want the focus to be on you, you either move in front of the visual, which you could only do with a flip chart, or you turn the visual off if it's an LCD or an overhead projector. The second principle is visibility. This is more than just the quality of the writing that's on the slide. It also refers to the sight lines in the room. Check it out in advance. Can people in all parts of the room see your slide and your equipment? The third principle is a no-brainer. Make sure that the operation of the equipment is effective. In other words, that it's in working order and that you know how to operate it effectively. Don't make any assumptions about the equipment. Try it out yourself in advance. Arrive early enough to do that. The last one is the most important. It's all about communication. Make sure that you address the audience and not the slide. The effective use of visual aids can add immeasurably to the quality of your presentation. Poor ones do exactly the opposite. Seeing is believing. It's time to present. It's time for you to cash in on all of that great preparation that you've done and connect with your audience. Great presenters have the ability to create credibility and rapport with their audience, and we're going to talk about those two subjects. The first is credibility. There's some pretty easy things that you can do that help to establish that for your audience. The first is how you dress. People make judgments very, very quickly. Dress in appropriate clothing that is comfortable for you and doesn't provide the audience with any distractions. If you don't know exactly how formal to be, err on the side of formality. It's much safer. The second piece around credibility is appearing confident. And you notice I said appearing because sometimes it's just an acting job. Pretend to be confident and you'll appear confident, of course, but you'll also increase the feeling of confidence that you have inside. The third part of credibility is being able to use the equipment professionally. We've talked about visual aids, but we haven't talked about microphones. It's important to arrive early before your presentation and check out the sound system. Find out where you need to stand in front of a mic. Some mics you need to be very close, others farther away. Check that out. If you don't have a sound technician, have someone else listen to your delivery or listen yourself. You can get a pretty good sense in a room as to how loud you're speaking and how well you're using the mic. Standing too close to a mic will cause those popping noises that are so irritating for your audience. An energetic delivery increases your credibility. It says that you have passion and excitement and enthusiasm about what you're saying. That will lead the audience to feel the same way as well. Probably the most difficult part of any presentation is the question and answer period. Sometimes the questions can be very, very difficult. There's a lot of information in the companion guide about how to handle question periods effectively. There are, however, some cardinal rules. The first of which is always restate the person's question. That makes sure that everyone in the audience hears and understands what's been asked. Make your point and then give a solid example to make that question or that answer of yours concrete. And then give an example to make your point believable and concrete for your audience. Rapport is extremely important in terms of affecting what it is that people learn and remember about your presentation. The first rule of establishing rapport is to speak extemporaneously, and we've talked about that. That creates that dialogue and connection with your audience that is so important. You can also check the needs of your audience. That shows that you respect them and are interested in their learning. That can be easily done by a simple question such as, what are some of the issues that are the most problem for you in this area of the law? It's always important to show respect for all individuals in the audience. Sometimes in question and answer periods, lawyers can get out of hand and ask some questions that are difficult and perhaps a bit disrespectful. Always important to show respect for them. That will increase the rapport that you have with the entire audience and build some safety into the learning situation that's so important for learning. Humor is important. It's great to be able to add it into your presentation, but be careful that it is appropriate humor, it's focused on part of your topic, and doesn't show disrespect for anyone in the audience. The last thing is to be honest. If you are a real person with real experiences, you've made mistakes and learned from it, that enables the people in the audience to also feel confident in being able to do that themselves. They'll also be more likely to ask questions that will make a bigger difference to their practice. Above all, end on time. You notice I didn't say finish on time. Of course you want to finish on time, but if you can't finish, at least end. Keep people longer than you said you would is disrespectful of their time. And besides, it's not practical. Their minds walk out the door even if their bodies are still in their chairs. Well, my time is over. I've had my time on stage, and now it's yours.